Michael Damiani, it's a good time for JRPGs because one of the JRPGs that you were really excited about back in the day, and you actually got me interested in playing it, is Xenoblade Chronicles. And the game is going to be re released next month on 3DS. And you've actually had a chance to get pretty deep into it. How do you feel about this version of the game?
Well, I just want to start by saying that I still feel that Xenoblade is an amazing RPG.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I'm glad so many people listened to me in the office when I started playing through it back in 2010 actually, when the European version came out, and then or sorry, the Japanese version came out, and then we saw it come out in Europe in English in 2011, and then we didn't get it till 2012, but we actually got it. But thankfully, people got to play it. People saw it was pretty good. It might not have been for everyone with the excessive side quest and the length of it, but on the new 3DS, this version, they've managed to basically put that game on a handheld, and it is the same game, essentially. Runs the same, plays the same. It's just on a handheld now. And I guess that's a good showcase of showing that a last generation system, can can be placed onto a current gen handheld, and that's what they're trying to showcase here. That being said, as much as I love Xenoblade Chronicles, the most poignant thing that's coming out of me playing it so far is that I don't like playing it on a handheld. I miss playing it on a larger screen. And a game like this, with such the environments, the scale of it, and the scope of the game, it's meant to be played on a larger screen. This it isn't. I don't get that much enjoyment playing it on the new 3DS as I did playing it on a Wii on an HD TV. It's pretty much as simple as that.
Definitely. It doesn't look as good, which is a huge problem for a game that features such expansive landscapes. But what about all of the people out there that have a new 3DS, don't have a Wii or no longer have a Wii, and don't have a Wii U? Is it still worth playing?
If you haven't played it before and this is your only option, honestly, I mean, if you don't, this is kind of tricky to me. If you don't have a new 3DS, you're gonna have to spend the money to buy that and then the game, and that's pretty much.
Right.
You could buy if you have a Wii already. I would say get the just go on eBay and pay the $80 or $100, whatever the heck they're selling it for now, because that's still cheaper than getting the new 3DS and the game. If you really want a new handheld gaming system and you haven't played Xenoblade before, then I would recommend, if you haven't played this game, you need to play it some way. And if it has to be on the new 3DS, then so be it. It's still the same game. I just think it's harder to appreciate the environments and the scale of the game when you're playing it on such a small screen. So it's definitely still worth playing for people who haven't experienced it yet.
Yeah, I feel like one of the unfortunate things about the original release of Xenoblade Chronicles in the West is it came out extremely late in the Wii life cycle, where the Wii was kind of dying off, and it was only released at GameStop. So it was this very limited, very niche thing that a lot of people loved, and I almost feel like they're kind of doing it again, releasing it only on the new 3DS. Do you think that's going to hurt this game, or does it have a chance at success?
I mean, well, first of all, I don't know if this game would have even been possible to do on the 3DS unless it was
Right.
severely. I don't know. Like they didn't even bother to try it, so it could have been a mess if they tried to do it on the regular 3DS hardware. That being said, I don't. I don't know. It sold very well on the Wii, despite it coming out so late here in North America and being a very like niche game to get. You could only get it through the online store GameStop, I believe, if I recall correctly. So it wasn't in a widespread release. Like you can go to a Best Buy or an Amazon, or you can go to a Target or Walmart to get it. This has a wider release, and the new 3DS, I believe, it's coming out along with a new system, new hardware that just recently came out, and I think combined with like Majora's Mask pushing the people wanting to get that system because of the collector's edition and it sold pretty well. I feel like there's enough new 3DSs out there that it could sell as well as the Wii version. I just don't expect it to outsell the original Wii version by any means. In fact, like I kind of expect it to sell under, but I don't think this game was ever intended to be like a blockbuster in terms of it's a re-release. It's not a It's not a new game, and they didn't do a lot of work to this. They just reworked it so that it ran on the new 3DS hardware and looks identical. It's not like a remaster. It's not an HD update or anything like that. In fact, the only new things they added, from what I can tell, is there's a model viewer and a jukebox mode that you
Hmm.
can unlock to view models, listen to songs, based on these coins you can get. You can get them from street passing. The street pass coins you have, you can spend them on those as well. That's really the only extra thing I've seen so far. Everything else is pretty much identical, aside from a few interface tweaks to match the 3DS's layout.
I think your prediction about how it will perform is very level-headed, but for a lot of people that haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles at all, I mean, this is a game where you and myself and a few other people really adore it. It's an excellent JRPG in a way that it almost feels like it kind of revitalized the genre when it came out. What is it about Xenoblade that makes it so good? What's sort of the elevator pitch you have for those who aren't familiar with it?
At the very base level, it appeals to people who enjoy. This is gonna sound bad to some people, but that's the fact. It's like an offline MMO. It has a lot of the appealing aspects of an MMO, at least to me. The
Hmm.
amount of quests, the combat system, with the cooldown system, how it works, and positionals. It's very similar to an MMO in style, except you do not need to be online. You do not need to play with anyone else. It is very story driven. It's a very single player focused experience, but it feels as grand and as large scale as an MMO. And it's the sheer freedom you have in this MMO to do what you want, whether it's can try and continue with the story, go do secondary objectives, which there are hundreds of them, like too many of them to do, or you can just simply just explore the zones and try and find. There's always something hidden that rewards you for going off and exploring a random direction. And these zones are so big that at times you feel like, is this the way I'm supposed to be going or not? But you feel like you are making some kind of progress because one way or another you are doing either something optional, something that feels fun, or something that's progressing the story. At least that's how I felt about it, and just I don't know, like I was just blown away by how large the zones were, and then how visually different they started to look as you progressed, and then the aesthetics that they used to make the zones look more and more bizarre. It was just it was a very rewarding experience. I felt like seeing this unfold before my eyes, and it was so long. Like I thought this cannot possibly be longer than 30, 40 hours, and it ran me like 70 hours finishing that game. It might be too long for some people, but it's just like a massive game. And if you like that type of stuff, if you like doing quests, if you like exploring vast open zones, if you like a little bit less of direction, other than progressing through the story, this is something I feel that you will enjoy.
A lot of times when I talk about JRPGs, I get a decent number of people that say they love JRPGs because the stories are so involved, and that's their favorite thing is just sort of following the story along and getting immersed in that narrative. Do you think just by itself, the story is strong in Xenoblade Chronicles?
I honestly felt it was strong enough through 90% of the game,
Hmm.
especially early on. The concept of these two robot beings that were gods that fought each other, and now the world exists on top of their bodies and inside their bodies, and there's humans live on one side, and this machine race lives on the other side, and there's this big mystery about why are these machines trying to always kill us? Why are they so superior? There's always this constant like there's always mysteries dangled in front of you, and then for every answer you get, they throw you two more questions or another big twist that keeps you wanting to know. You constantly want to know the answer, and it works very well up until a certain point where it finally gets to it finally gets to a moment where, all right, we need the big payoff, and what is this all leading up to? And unfortunately, like many other JRPGs, it jumps the shark and goes into really nonsensical territory, which is a shame. But I felt like the actual ending part was the good enough payoff. It's just this segment leading up to the ending is just. I think the writer of this game, who has a history of doing this, especially dating
Yes,
back
it
to like
does.
dating back to Xenogears. It's like
Yeah.
you kind of expected this to happen. It was just, I guess it was nice that it didn't happen until so late in the game that you weren't turned off by then. I think you're so invested around the time it happens that you're like, screw it, let's just see this through to the end. Like I spent this much time. What's another few hours to get through this and see the final boss and the ending? And I kind of like the ending's explanation of a lot of things. And I think it will tie into the new game somehow, but that's yet to be seen.
Excellent. Yeah, it is coming out at a great time, so people who are interested in Chronicles X can pick up this on the new 3DS. Well, thank you so much, Damiani. I think you articulated the points very, very well. You sold me on Xenoblade Chronicles all over again, even though I'm in the midst of Bloodborne. I want to get back to Xenoblade Chronicles.
Here we go! Wah! Right! You're up! Yo! Wow, down! Solo!
My turn!
So you can fight back!
Nice!
We did it!